It's coming up, man.
I know. I know I'm getting sucked into this. I've been trying to avoid it and like say didn't want to go to that conference, but all the cool kids are there.
Well, I'm not there.
That's what I said.
Welcome to Game & Nodes, a weekly podcast from independent validated teams. January's a weird month. January is just a weird month, isn't it? Especially in the Northern Hemisphere. Noel's just like, don't know what you're fucking talking about.
Sweating his ass off.
Yeah, exactly. The rest of us are just like, what is sun? What is daylight?
Well, I'm in Melbourne at the moment, so you know the time of day and like it can be. I might be. Well, it's sunny this morning, but it could be a fucking snowstorm this afternoon. You never know.
No, for Australia, you know what? People from Melbourne can fuck off about this.
Back off, mate.
Yeah, no, they can't. Like everywhere I went in Melbourne, people were like, "Oh, you're from Europe." The funny thing about Melbourne is, it's a really quite indoorsy city, and we have real seasons here. And in a lot of weather, and you're like, "Yeah, all right." I've had a look at your weather fucking chart online, and it's not that bad. Like, it's a bit foggy some days. Boo fucking who? It's not Brussels, is it? It's not like a random European city that doesn't have the Gulf Stream and just has like, in summer it's 40 degrees. In winter it's minus fucking 20.
Yeah. Look, man, I'm not sure if I like your attitude.
I like Melbourne. I like Melbourne.
Got real
just
fucking
like
weather
the
problems out here.
narrative people from Melbourne push about like how wacky and crazy the weather is in Melbourne. It's like, nah, it's still good weather. It's Australia.
Yeah, like
it's like California's being like, sometimes it rains, and you're like,
nope. I didn't see the sun today.
Other places,
yeah, exactly. I didn't see the sun today. Like I haven't seen the sun in weeks.
Yeah, exactly. Like, have you ever seen like when it like attempts to rain in LA and everybody loses their fucking shit, and you're like, yeah, sometimes water falls from the sky.
That is my single biggest beef with Portland. Portland, it rains like 3/4 of the year. Drizzling, granted. But whenever it does, traffic goes to a standstill. People stop driving well. Like, it's insane. It'll be like the lightest misting outside, and just it becomes mayhem in the roads. I'm like, this is Portland. How are you?
People have to deal with that like every day. What the fuck?
That's why it's so entertaining, because they deal with it every single day. And then, like, there's a difference, because when there's a sunny day, everyone drives fine. But God forbid there's a little bit of moisture in the air.
You got to be careful, man. Got to be careful.
It's like that is, to be fair, something people in the UK say about, like, because obviously different places have different numbers of rain days, but different amounts of overall rain. So, like, the West Coast is overwhelmingly the wetter one. But like the further you go north, like because it gets colder, it ends up being like this really, you basically like walk into like a sheet of water, but like really thin water, and you're soaked at the other end. And you're like, what the fuck? I didn't even see that it was raining. It was just sort of suspended water. But then like further down south, it's like these huge, big ass raindrops. They like hit you in the head and knock you down if you're, a spindly lad from the north. You're just like, what the fuck is this? What are these big heavy raindrops? Like you get to the point where like after 15 years living up here, like I don't really wear a raincoat anymore, because there's no like if you wear a raincoat, it stops water coming in the top. But what about the water coming up the under? Like it's like walking into a solid sheet of water. But then you go like down south and you're like, oh, I could just wear a raincoat and it would just stop it, wouldn't it? Because it's just these big fat pregnant drops of water just falling from the sky.
Yeah, that's exactly right. It's basically that exact type of thing where Portland is just like a constant sheet of water, and that just scares the hell out of people.
In Melbourne, you don't take a raincoat because there's absolutely no indicator whatsoever that it's going to fucking rain when you leave the house.
But isn't it just like isn't it like Southern Florida where like if you wait 10 minutes, then the weather changes, right? Like it rains for 10 minutes, like and the next thing it's beautiful and it's all dry.
Yeah, you'll be out like, walking walking by the river, having a nice afternoon. All of a sudden, there's just fucking water everywhere, sideways. And then that'll be followed by some fog, and then it's like sunny again, and you're like,
fucking hell.
See that there you go. Right there is the, and then it's sunny again. How weird! You're like,
yeah,
sun.
We have the other two except for that last piece. Yeah, right.
We did that last one. You're gonna have to explain that to me. I don't think.
What the fuck is sun?
At least the days.
I mean, sometimes it's just randomly cold as fuck as well. Like you just, like it might be a sunny morning, and then like mid-afternoon, it just gets cloudy and fucking cold, and you're like, what the fuck has just happened? But yeah, anyway, Melbourne problems.
So okay, did anybody else remember that fucking TV show with the fucking just getting us demonetized with the Canadian Mountie, right? And then he goes south into America, and it's all about his zany cultural exchange. Like he teams up with like a hard luck cop. It was called Due South, I think. Which city was that? Was that Portland?
Was it called Deuce? It does sound familiar now that you mention it.
It sounds fucking horrible.
I have the vague suspicion that unlike Sliders, it did not age well.
Late 90s.
Sliders.
All gross.
Do you remember Sliders? It was just like
Sliders.
But cheaper. Like the production budget was much tighter.
Okay, now that I'm looking at the trailer, I do remember the show.
Looks like it was filmed in Chicago.
The Adventures of an Impossibly Upright Royal Canadian Mounted Police Constable. Dude, impossibly upright is a fucking awesome set of definitions.
That's fantastic.
Welcome to Game Knows. The impossibly upright, the fray, and his American colleagues in the city of Chicago. Oh yeah, there you go.
I thought it was Portland, not Chicago. I thought it was Beverly Hills Cop that started in Chicago, and Due South was in Portland. So all my Portland references are clearly non-existent.
Chicago references.
Yeah, they turn out to be Chicago references, which, you know what, on balance, does make a lot more sense. There was a big lake, now I think about it, that featured prominently in several episodes.
Portland's lake is much larger, to be clear.
What is Portland's lake? Portland has a lake too.
Yeah, the Pacific Ocean. The Pacific Ocean.
Okay.
Well, that doesn't fucking count. We're talking about a lake, like a lake.
There's no lake in Portland, is there?
Well, I didn't think there was a lake in Portland.
Oh, okay.
Technically, there's Lake Oswego, but there's like some iffiness there. Like it's illegal to actually be on the lake because it's like a rich county and people like it. It's a whole thing. So they're yes,
really?
But no. Yeah.
They don't want people like no boaters and such.
Yeah, no, it's really interesting. So Lake Oswego is, I think, one of the richest cities in the U.S. And so what they did in Oregon, all waterways are public property. And so we got around that was they purchased all the land. The city had purchased all the land around the lake and leases it for houses so that the public can't actually go to the lake and you can be arrested for it. There's a couple articles online about it.
Sweet.
So it's like we don't want any peasants here, guys.
Dude, nothing ruins nature like fucking rich people. I tell you what. They are fucking awesome at it. Just lock it down.
Hey, so I keep mentioning this every fucking week, but
could your archive node?
No, Fargo finished this week. The latest Fargo season finished this week. Man, I don't know if it was a fucking good season. I loved it. It was fantastic. Probably one of their best. Watch it. It's good.
I have heard. How's your Kajir archive node? How's your Kajir archive node saga going?
I still haven't done the refund yet. Man, this fucking guy.
Listeners want to know.
Fuck me. There's like
all of your delegators listen to this podcast.
Any of my delegators who give a fuck have left anyway. So like,
they're probably on this podcast.
How is it so impossible to find an archive on Kujira?
Doesn't exist.
Tune in next week. Next week when we find out if Null find a Kujira archive node.
Doesn't exist.
So I asked how. So the person who is syncing one, I asked how fast it was going, and it's like half the speed of the network. I see, it's not going to catch up, right?
Ramesh says, "I don't delegate the king notes. I don't want to be slashed." Good advice coming from the comments of our longtime listeners.
Fucking hell, that probably just cost me 5% of my business. Thanks. Deleting this episode.
Nobody watches this episode. It's fine.
The most random people tell me they watch this show. It was like I was having a meeting with someone yesterday, and they're like, "Oh yeah, we watch your show every now and then." So what the fuck are you talking about? And they're like, "Game of Nerds."
Am I the only? Am I the only one left on Mars? As in, like, has everybody?
I'm still on Mars. I think
the Lavender's still on Mars because we're a tiny organization such as ours, obviously the decision I don't have Ertemann or anybody else clever in the organization full time to bounce ideas off of. So I was staring at that server bill. It's on a yearly cycle the other day when we were doing an audit, and I was just thinking, is Mars going to come back in the next 12 months? Is Mars ever going to be anything? Really?
Was Mars ever anything?
Well, okay, so I also worked out
come back from what? Where to go?
While doing the audit thing, right? I think the Cosmos chain we would turn off last on would probably be Stargaze, right? They, I think, have the best product and best team in terms of just shipping features. But when one does some mathematics about whether or not we've made money on that chain,
look,
I think
a good validator doesn't do math.
Well, sure. It looks like we are just about in the black, especially since replatforming off of AWS, over a year ago now, and blah 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 blah. Like, we've done a bunch of stuff that has set us up on a lower cost basis, but even then, we're not pulling any rewards in the current market. It doesn't make sense to hang on to stuff. Doesn't really make sense to compound, create tax events and whatnot. So we are like, I'm not good at Excel. I really need to. I'm not good with spreadsheets and whatnot. But I just put it on a chart, and you can literally see like the time converging or when it starts to lose money, and you're like, oh boy, we are not good at this business, are we? Like, validation, sometimes you're like, literally, I think when the price converged on Osmosis in that period, because there was it wasn't like a pre-mine, it was kind of like a pre-mine before the Osmosis pair settled, right? Because staking was on as soon as the chain launched. I think we sold that chunk, and I think that's been our profit basis on that chain ever since. We've just been we've just been living off that.
I think the other three of us here are all just sitting here thinking to ourselves, you have time to chart shitcoins? Like,
well, I can tell you at the current high of Mars's price right now, because it is at something of a local high, I will make $690 gross profit off of Mars. Well, that's not even profit. Gross income off of Mars.
Gross income. What, for selling all your tokens?
For selling every single one, every single staking
per
reward.
month?
Per year.
Oh,
so
that's more like there we go, people. There we go. As long as you're running on like a Raspberry Pi, you could maybe take your wife out to dinner.
Yeah, exactly.
Wow, that's not profit though, is it?
That's not profit then.
That's why I corrected that. This isn't profit.
$100 of a Raspberry Pi. Come on, I'm working.
Sell all the tokens. Yeah.
So you're probably making a $3,000 loss.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, someone has to pay for the network, don't they? If it's not the users, it's the validators.
But speaking of coins, I found out this week. I know we've been running Odin protocol for a long time. We were talking about this in the chat, and it's been for a while. I almost forgot that it was running because it's been running on like a VM structure in our DC that like it's been fine. It's been quiet. Like it's monitored, but it's not doing anything. We haven't had an upgrade in like a year and a half or maybe more. I don't even know. It's been a long time. And then I was informed that number one, there was an upgrade going on, or not upgrade, but they're regenesising and all that kind of stuff. They're doing a massive type of change. And I also recognized that the last time I looked at the price of Odin was 0.0007. I think 3 zeros, I think is what it was. And now it's like 29 cents. And completely, I had no idea. I've never even pulled rewards on that validator ever.
Back in the black, baby.
It's
it went to
you
one
never
of our
know.
most profitable networks right quick.
Why didn't you say something?
Which is so sad.
Well,
like,
I'm really low in VP, but honestly, I don't even know what's in. Well, the chain's dead right now. I can't look, but I don't even know what's even in the wallet. I have no idea. So yeah, there you go. Steak with Rhino. Never look at what is in the wallet. Just let it run forever.
Schultzy, did you just say it's one of your most profitable chains?
Isn't that sad? Out of the 50 or so networks that we're on, 50, 60 maybe now, it's probably in the top 10 or so.
Oh my god.
Well, that's the case for running a shitload. Is they all spike at different times, and so a few times a year you have winners that you're not expecting are going to be winners.
Saying the phrase 60 chains there gave me anxiety.
I'm sure Schultz runs more than 60 chains. I was lowballing it there.
Well, that's just main nets. If we include test nets, then Jesus God.
There you go.
I don't even want to know.
There you go.
Oh god, that's just fuck.
Meanwhile, Pikachu's running 400, and it's just like, huh? What?
Logan's running the shitload, like too many.
Yeah. Pikachu could never leave the house. How does he get his food? Like,
orders in
intravenously, fucking.
Dr. Chew orders out.
Yeah.
Big flex
honestly,
from Lav.
I don't understand how Pikachu doesn't run Horcrux with all that he runs. Like, I think that my stress level would just always be so high if I didn't run Horcrux. I
could
panic.
Good answerable. I don't run it on all. I run it on most, but not on all. But like it does. But it's good answerable. Like you're controlling state. You know, like I understand. Like I'm never worried about double signing in these situations.
I have fucking PTSD just with like the 14 chains I run with that noise that comes out of PagerDuty. It cuts through my sleep like butter, and every time I hear it, I die just a little bit, and and it goes off enough with 14 main nets. I could imagine how fucking dead I would be if I had 50 networks running. I'd be walking around crying all the time.
I was watching something recently, and the PagerDuty sound went off in the show, and I immediately like, what's that? Well, there's a disturbance in the force. Yeah.
I had a thing where my ringtone went, and bear in mind, like our peak was like 7 main nets, so even less than null. I had a thing where the special tone, which used to be the Juno mainnet, has had an issue. Notification went off, and basically I was in work. Somebody came in and asked me a question. I was actually like, what the fuck? And then I was like, Jesus, that is actual PTSD. You're like, it turned out it was because it was after I had my phone stolen. It was just a new phone. That was just the default message tone. It wasn't a special tone, but I just had like a shout at somebody because they interrupted me, realizing that everything was fucked, and then being like, oh no, it's literally a text saying your parcel has arrived. And then I had to apologize and go out and get cookies. I was like, sorry, that just triggered a really stressful memory for me, and I was a massive dick. I'm gonna go buy cookies.
It's an interesting apology strategy. Cookies.
If you work in the same shared office for like over half a decade, and And none of you like work on exactly this. Like, there's some people who work for the same companies or work together or whatever, but mainly it's just people that have decided they want to keep working with the same group of people. There's people pick up your lunch for you when you're having a bad day and bring it back, and bring coffees and yada yada yada. So kind of like being a prick, and like somebody like asks you a nice question while your phone's going off and you're like, what the fuck do you want, man? Like is very much like a contravention of the no dickheads policy. So
British.
What?
What?
That's funny. Huh?
What? Huh?
What? Oh?
So, man, I'll tell you what. Contabo had these new Ryzen 9 servers, and I was all excited, and I ordered a fucking heap of them. Contabo? 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 I don't know.
Did you say
and
Contabo?
Contabo.
I'm pretty sure it's Contabo. Yeah.
That's what I always go to, Contabo.
Yeah. Yeah. I think it's the wrong emphasis, but yeah. Okay. Anyway.
Yes. Okay.
I also thought Aleo. So what the fuck do I know?
I'm constantly putting the emphasis on the wrong syllable. So,
it's still it's such a fine line between stupid and clever. Yeah,
it's just a little turnabout.
Anyway, I was quite excited about these bloody things, and now they just
what's wrong?
Fucking, so the delivery just keeps getting put out and out and out. I don't think they're ever going to deliver these things.
I was so focused on your pronunciation, I forgot what the problem was. What you ordered some new? They had some Ryzen or something.
So they had some new Ryzen 9 servers I wanted to try out, and they're all in Asia, and they've got like 35 terabytes of outbound. And I was like, this is going to suit me down to the ground, and yeah, they're just never getting delivered. Ordered them probably like at least 3 weeks ago now. So
cancel.
Delivery dates keep going out and out and out and out. I'll keep them. I'll see when they get delivered. They might be good.
Ryzen's are showing up everywhere, and like we've been really competitive pricing on a bunch of stuff right now, which has been really nice.
So, like tchain have got just like Ryzen rack mount shit now. So I think people are just slamming that into racks. Yeah, I mean, why not? They're consumer chips, but they're pretty good.
They've been extremely stable for us, right? Like we haven't any issues with that type of stuff.
The bang for buck is good, really good, and they're fast chips. Like the clock speeds are fast, and I don't think like many people realize, but that actually makes a difference on Cosmos chains having fast threads. Having shitloads of threads is one thing, but having fast threads is like another thing. And if you're running something like Injective, fast threads matter. Fast threads and disk IO really matter on Injective, and people are like, I've got fucking 60 cores, man. Why is this thing struggling?
Right.
Because your fucking cores are like one megahertz.
Exactly right. Yeah. It
I
takes
got
forever to do
100 cores on fucking AWS. I spent 40 grand a month.
But they're slow as shit.
Well, they're just using the wrong fucking type, aren't they? They should be using C's.
Yeah, man, C's. No one here knows anything about AWS, bud.
Knows they should be using C's.
Don't worry, I understand. I got you.
Like, if you're gonna spend your money, at least spend it on the right fucking thing. That's all I'm saying.
I feel like such a dickhead when people like ask me for help with something, and they're like, "Yeah, I'm running an AWS whatever instance," or they just tell me the instance name and assume that I know it's AWS. I'm like,
do you get on your bare metal high horse and just look down upon them, like look down your nose at them?
I get on Google and quickly Google it so I don't look like a dickhead.
So stupid.
I'm like, what is this fucking thing?
What is this
talking
thing?
about?
Then you open the dictionary, and then you turn to the page. It says dinosaur, and then there's like a picture of you, like a bare metal server.
Hey, now.
Data.
It's like when people come at me with Kubernetes as well. I'm just like, I don't know.
I know Kubernetes, and like people get really impressed with like K8 structures and huge Docker container management of Cosmos node, and I go, okay, that's fine. Like, not like impressed. Like, it doesn't impress me. Like, I understand it.
Yagni, right? With a lot of this stuff.
Yeah, like it's okay, but
I mean, yeah, unless you're managing a lot of infrastructure, usually for one or two vertical applications, just doesn't make fucking loads of sense. I don't know.
Well, you do have to other. I'm like, without Ansible or without like some sort of automation, I totally get it. Like I completely understand it. But with those tool sets and being able to run bare metal, I think it's just far faster and less bullshit. And like even all the stuff that you dealt with on the Aptos stuff of like having to tear down through Terraform and taking half an hour, right? You'd miss a whole epic of shit because AWS is cycling through its bullshit, right?
Well,
meanwhile, I just restarted a service.
You typically miss one proposal, right? Which is just that, and that's just because there is an abstraction around the container connecting to the ingress.
And now everybody, we watch the Fray frantically defend AWS.
That is not true. Well, if you had to tear down and like reset up everything, not just a restart, but like actually tear everything down and restart, it took fucking forever. What are you talking about? Like it was like the slow motion of AWS automation kind of running that shit.
Oh yeah, on one of the test nets. Yeah, so you're talking like 30 minutes probably tear down and bring back up. But like that's time. Only like because the external the way the key management works on Aptos, at least at the time, there are ways you can get around it that didn't support like an external signer. So if it did support an external signer, then it would be instantaneous because, and in fact, I mean, if you didn't need to move between accounts, you could even just bring up both and A/B them within AWS. So, I mean, it's like anything else. The thing is, right, to write a really big, complex Kubernetes Terraform stack is months and months of work, like months and months of full-time work, and then you have to maintain it. And it's just not worth it. For like 95% of things you can knock out a quick Ansible script for. The other 5% of things you can write a bash script for. Like none of what validator companies do, if you're not as big as Figment maybe, or Chorus One, or one of those guys who have joiners, movers, leavers, like staff coming and going, and you need your code and you need your code to document your processes. So when Billy fucking idiot, who's a fucking ops engineer who's also highly invested in a diverse basket of shit coins, either A, gets rich and quits, or B, goes to zero and has to run from his creditors. When he fucking ghosts you one way or the other, you have like some deployment scripts that are completely automated that manage all the infrastructure for you. And that's like a really great situation for Terraform or something like that, where you have the state externally managed. But in every other situation, you don't need it. I would say the other situation, which is really useful to have a fully terraformed setup, is if you have a newborn, because the immutable infrastructure stops you from making major tired idiot fuck ups. And there was at least one time where something needed to be done back last April, I guess. And you're just like bashing away and you're like, how the fuck, and then like the infrastructure setup goes like, don't do that. And you're like, don't do that. Good idea. I'm going to take your advice. Terraform command line. Granted, if you're running bare metal, you're not just going to nuke a box either. So it swings and roundabouts. But I know that my blood pressure was lower when we were fully terraformed and I was super sleep deprived than when we migrated off of AWS. And I was still the same level of sleep deprived, but just on bare metal.
I think that I'm not disagreeing with that at all. I think that is a warm blanket of Jeff Bezos and not a real blanket. Like just a make believe blanket of security. Like those redundancies are there, but not at that level where even if there's a massive hardware failure, like there's no guarantee that that's going to re-provision the same way and not have issues and all that kind of stuff. Like it's the same problem, right?
Yeah.
So
I
like
think you're probably a better bet would actually be to like a kind of good halfway house is that it's very unlikely that you would fully lose, say, an EC2 instance. So like
I've had that happen.
A kind of sick, twisted thing you can do with on-demand EC2 is you can change the node type and it will force rebuild, but with all the state.
Sure.
If you have attached volumes. So in the absolute worst case scenario, you could literally reboot an adjacent instance in an adjacent AZ, either via a script or via a disaster recovery process, or even via the fucking console. And that would actually be like, that's actually as practical a real world safety blanket for something like a signer going down as actually terraforming the entire thing, because the reality is the instance launch time is going to take less than a minute, and it will bootstrap on a new piece of hardware. I mean, it will be shared hardware somewhere, but it will be conceptually new from whatever the problem was that's taking you out elsewhere. But then, you know, if you buy a box from OVH, it's only going to be a 2-hour lead time for most things.
Well, if they have them, and all those types of things. But
yeah,
I mean, we've been having all sorts of, well, not all sorts. We've had a couple of hardware issues.
But I mean, I guess I'm talking about for like Cosmos here. Like Cosmos is very consumer hardware. Like you could, some of the boxes you can use for Cosmos validators, they'll OVH on paper say they'll deliver them to you in 72 seconds.
Right. Sure.
You know, stuff we need for Aptos is like a week, 10 days. But like that's like a very different spec or whatever. But like,
speaking of Aptos, upcoming testnet 3 null. I know you're excited to hear about all of our testnet 3 stories coming again late February to a podcast near you, going on into March. We're going to drag it out through the summer.
They decided to once again put the testnet on a really inconvenient personal date for me, which is awesome. I love it when these things happen around birthdays, anniversaries, you know. It's really great to explain to your very patient family. You're like, hey, you know that thing we had planned in for like 6 months?
Dude.
Yeah.
Listen,
it's done.
What I say is, this is where the money comes from. Okay, this is where the money comes from. I'm not like goofing around, although I am going to eat Denver maybe, and so that is goofing around. But other than that, this is where, and Austin. Do we need a 7-person house for Austin? Maybe not, but it's where the money comes from. So yeah.
I mean, you're out there goofing every Wednesday night, man.
I know. This is where the money comes from. Not this podcast, but that's between the 4 of us.
speaking about conferences, do we have the compound sorted yet?
We don't. I do have some numbers in terms of people. I was waiting for some artifact numbers, which I think I have, which is going to be 0, because it's too far away and they don't know how many people and blah, 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 blah. So I do think at least we have 6 or 7. So I was gonna look for a place with 1 more bedroom, 1 extra bedroom in case something else comes up, and then go from there. So we could start looking now. And yeah.
Okay, so artifact is going. It's just they might have many, is what you're saying.
Correct. Yeah. So I know, because we were talking about. It's funny enough. We were talking about places for half an hour, and then at the end of the half an hour, we suddenly realized that he was talking about Denver and I was talking about Austin. so the half an hour conversation was worth nothing. And then he's like Austin, I just don't know yet, and we're just not sure, and so it might be just too far away to actually just define it. So other than getting those guys 4 bedrooms, which I think is too much, or whatever else, I think it might be better just to separate. Because right now, like I'm looking for 5-6 bedroom places, and those are really, like, they're starting to disappear because I assume other groups are getting places down there. So I think it'd be better for us.
Foundations, baby. All those VC funded foundations with dollars to burn.
So we should go to a trailer park and just like raft up some trailers.
We could do that too. I don't care.
Is there a
you can rent
is there-
RVs and go find something. Yeah, I don't care. Doesn't matter.
Is there a like? No, it's not. There's no lakes around there. Is there? I was going to say, is there like a boat marina or something? You can hire like a fucking.
There are lakes around there, but I think they're pretty far outside of town though. Like
this is just the artifact boat in Amsterdam all over again. Just
I heard that was cool. That's a good idea. I like.
It was an upmarket but slightly musty spelling houseboat. It was
Well,
like
you get like.
It was quite fancy, and you're like, "Oh, this is fancy." And then, like, you went down to the fridge and you got a beer, and you just sort of milling around inside before going upstairs to the deck. And you were like,
"Is that mold?
It's just a little bit musty in here."
Yeah,
is that mold?
Or maybe I'm just
just
imagining things. Yeah, you're like, maybe I'm just imagining things because, yeah, maybe it's just the smell of the canal. I mean, the canal's not 100% totally clean. So you're like, am I imagining things? Am I just trying to, am I subconsciously just being a dick here? Am I just negging on the canal boat?
What you really don't want to do is turn on a black light at nighttime on a houseboat.
Shit.
Oh, yeah?
Oh, yeah. Well,
just because mold.
No, like people hire them for like, bucks parties and stuff, right? So
for sexy parties.
I think that's what he said.
Sexy
bucks
parties,
party. Yeah. Is that stag do?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, because Amsterdam. Oh, do you know what? That didn't even occur to me.
So there's like skimpy juice and everything everywhere. So
what are these terms? You making these up?
Skimpy juice.
No.
I don't
Skimpy
even want
juice.
to know.
I heard skimpy thing, and then I heard stack party. Is that what you said?
Well,
Yes,
the phrase said stag party.
I said
I
stag.
said
do.
Stag.
Stag
Oh,
do.
you said stack,
I said
like
bucks
what?
party.
Oh, okay.
So Rama's asking where his itinerary is for the for the fucking trip to.
Rama, you can have a dude. You're welcome,
Consensus.
man. Come on in. Fly in.
Come on in. There's plenty of room for more degeneracy.
I
Yeah,
will tell
exactly.
you, Rama, when I booked my ticket, it was pretty cheap. So go have a look. Maybe you can. Maybe you can get a week away. You can sleep on the floor.
Maybe they'll
I'll
do
show
one of
you.
those. One of those Cosmos fight in the ring parties. That'd be fun.
Yeah, like
Oh,
there'll be a
Jesus.
couch.
Rama versus whoever. That'd be
Just this buff kangaroo shows up.
Yeah, I want to know
That's
that.
fucking-
I'm not going to mess with the kangaroo.
pound it out. That would be
I
great.
knew this would happen.
Oh my goodness.
But I mean,
Any of our
like,
loyal listeners who are in this chat or elsewhere, if they want a room with with some group approval, we can probably find a place if they're coming to Consensus in Austin. Not like anybody off the street. Come on, like, I mean, Funky's
like has Rama declared himself an employee of Keynotes?
There you go.
Well,
I don't
okay, so news just in. Rama now works for King Nose. That's that. Shall we do some? Oh, before we do some news,
Rama's
No.
just dying inside every time you avoid the news. Oh, yep.
What do you got?
left page or right page?
Left, in the middle.
Okay, we're in the section marked Twitter.
X.
Me, sorry, I must turn down your offer to join the Mafia, as it would disappoint my friends on Twitter. The Mafia respects your decision.
Yes.
Yeah. So there you go. That's the draw tweet of the week. I guess we've all been in that situation. That's quite relatable.
Rama says a long one today, but not much in it. I assume I'm not sure if that was the
Is he
drill
talking about
tweet
the
or
drill
just this
tweet?
podcast.
Sandwich?
Podcast in general. This podcast in general.
It's always possible. It's always possible.
Feels like hours.
So I also tracked down a source for Slapshot the other day. Classic
Oh.
date.
Bring it in.
Classic
You
date.
found the
night.
VHS in a
Yeah.
dirty
Just-
fucking.
I was just
corner
going around every charity shop in the north of England
trying to find a
copy of it. So it's like just like flicking through like Paul Newman, and it's just like some other Paul Newman film. Like fucking get that out of here, Paul Newman, until the Slapshot. Yeah, my review would be the hockey bits for when that film was made was really well filmed.
Okay.
I was like
the
camera work during the hockey scenes. I was like, genuinely, this is very impressive for like the late 70s. The cinematography on the ice. I was like, this must have been really tricky to do.
Okay.
Because it's done like quite stylish. It's done like kind of leg level and it's really dynamic. Like I don't know, all of those bits. I was just like, I know that's not the point of the film, but I was watching it and was like, wow. And then my other half turns to me and is like, this is really dynamic camera work for whenever this film was made. And I was fucking literally
like, that's why I married you.
Yeah. I was literally like, that is just a good take. We're both having such good takes. Yeah, some bits of the film really haven't aged well, and some bits have aged extraordinarily well.
Yeah.
The weird bit where he just fucking stalks that guy's wife, just
the
for
weird
a big
bit
portion of the film.
Stalks. Oh yeah.
Yeah, that's like he's like really rapey. It's really not cool.
You mean
like,
Paul?
Yeah. He just like follows her back. Doesn't like follow.
Who, you mean?
To her house? Oh no, he gets in her car and she's like, "Get out!" And he's like, "Nope." And you're like, "Ooh!" And he's just like,
some of that doesn't.
"How about a kiss?" And you're like, "Ooh!" It's just like, and then she's just like driving, be like, "Get out of my car!" And he's like, "Nope." And then she drops him at his house, and he's just like, I hate to get out." And she's like, "Get out." You're a bit like. And then like he's talking to somebody else. He's just like, "I'm just trying to make him mad." And you're like, I don't know, man. There's quite a lot of homophobia in there, isn't there, as well?
There is, yeah, for sure.
There is.
Yep. It's a 70s movie, right?
Yeah.
It comes across as a 70s movie.
I remember distinctly there being a line like, "I don't care that you're a, but also you are," and you're like, well, way to throw that away in the same sense.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, like I don't know. All things considered, I thought it was actually a much better film that had any right to be. Slapshot.
It's a good book. It is a look. It represents that time and
stuff on the ice. Great camera work.
It's a movie that was great. Hansons are fun.
And do you know what? Like it has. I don't want to like overinflate a sense of importance, but I thought that it made a lot of the same points as The Deer Hunter, but with a much shorter runtime.
Yeah.
So I would also say that for it. I mean, like all of the stuff that's going on in the background of like the town, all of the shots that they take where they're showing you like what's happening by just are the chimneys on? Are the chimneys not? Like at the beginning of the thing where you can see that they're running like multiple shifts, and then halfway through they're like they show about the same time in the evening, and the chimneys aren't on. So you're like, what are they doing? Fewer shifts, and there's just I don't know. Maybe I was just hallucinating that stuff, but I felt like they did quite a bit of show don't tell in the way it was shot, and then obviously they do tell you quite a lot of what is then like the background and the manufacturing and everything. Anyway, whatever, man. Like I thought it was a really good film. As a kind of enjoyable,
fun stuff,
funny film, bit of seriousness behind it as well. Blah blah blah.
It has some ties, not ties, but it has some similar storylines to like Major League and those types of things because they're gonna get sold and all this kind of shit, and the owner's a piece of shit and all that kind of stuff. But I do like the owner in Slapshot. That whole like kind of storyline is hilarious, and I love that there's like no resolution to this movie. Like, it's not like Major League where they win the World Series. Like, no, they fucking lose, and the guy takes off his pants and skates around the rink, and they say fuck it, and roll credits. Like that's literally the movie. So
yeah, they're taking off the pants. You're just like, I don't really get what's happening here, and then they just give them the trophy. They're just like, well, fuck this. This is already a farce.
Exactly right.
There you go. You win, I guess. Whatever. Go fuck yourselves. And you're like, did they really earn that? No, they didn't. But then, was that the point of the film? No, it wasn't. And then, this is like roll credits, and you're like, well, nothing was resolved.
Nothing was resolved. Zero. Nothing's resolved. Which
reminds me
that is a great movie ending because now in today's world, all these fucking movies are resolved. It's annoying.
Well, have you also noticed just how long
do
it
they need
takes
to be
wrap
resolved?
up a movie these days? Like the wrap up section, like when they're just like, and now we all need to make sure that every character has a little coda. And
Right.
like if you watch like an old, even like watch Escape from New York, literally, like the president's just like blah 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 blah. And he's like, call me Pliskin, and then fucking roll credits. Like there's so many good films from like the 80s and whatever, where they're just like they are literally like the film is over. It is done.
You're like, what the fuck happened?
Roll credits. Have you ever seen
like,
Rolling Thunder? Like, it's supposedly Tarantino's favorite film. It's like a schlocky revenge flick, and it is probably the most roll creditsy of roll creditsy films, where the action transpires and they're barely even done with the action, and they're like, right, may as well just call it there. I think everybody gets the point. And
which one are you talking? Which one was that one?
Rolling Thunder.
Oh, yeah.
Absolute smashing. I saw there used to be a film night in the city where they had like kind of like grindhouse type and all sorts of stuff, like I think I mentioned it before, like Turkish Star Wars and all these weird like Lady Terminator and loads of kaiju movies and yada yada yada, like all these old weird films. And I really distinctly remember watching this in a room full of people, and there was like American Hardware as well, and some of those like Screamers and yada yada. A lot of schlocky sci-fi actually, but I really remember when they had the line. There's like a line that's something like, "He's in there. What are we gonna do? Well, we're gonna kill him and maybe 8 to 10 Mexicans." And there's like 40 people in this basement all drinking beer, and everybody just looks at each other and then starts laughing. It's not supposed to be funny, but just like the dialogue in that fucking film is insanity. It's got really young Tommy Lee Jones in it as well, hasn't it?
Oh, does it? Yeah.
The person, in fact, that's just remind that line. I think that line is of the young Tommy Lee Jones. I'm sure somebody who's doing a video essay on YouTube has tried to tie together Tommy Lee Jones's character from that film and his character in No Country for Old Men. That's a video essay. That's a video essay I want to see. It's the same character from Rolling Thunder, Vietnam vet, all the way to retired policeman, semi-retired policeman in No Country for Old Men. Anyway.
The one thing about Slapshot is like, no matter what, when I hear the Star Spangled Banner, like when one of the Hansons says, "Listen to the fucking song," like I hear that in my head every time, and so I say it out loud in the middle of wherever we're standing. So we'll be like, I was at a meet this weekend for one of my kids, and then they're playing Star Spangled Banner, and like I'm literally saying out loud, "Listen to the fucking song," like right at the same time, because I know exactly when that is. And so that's when you start.
That is the best. The film is almost worth it just for that one moment.
Those moments, there's some really good moments in there, like
that where the guy, like I feel like there's something just beautiful about the fact that he is in the wrong. He is in the wrong. He is the bad guy. And the guy, he
turns around, he's like all surprised,
guy, and is quite legitimately telling him off. And yet he's still just like, try to listen to the fucking song. I laughed so very out loud at that. That is, I think that's the single best moment in the film.
It might be. I know, it's silly.
It's just too good, and it also just like the way they're all fucked up as well. Like, and they've got their stupid glasses and everything. Oh,
Dave's a killer. Dave's a mess. Yeah, there's some good stuff in that one.
There's just lots of good stuff in there.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, Slapshot,
highly recommended.
Certified Game of Nodes fresh.
It's very US film. Yes, for sure. So, what do we got? We have some news.
No, I was like, I don't give a shit about this film. I watched it like 4 weeks ago, and I did not.
Well, yeah, I know. Yeah.
I've just been texting someone else. I don't even know what the fuck you're talking about.
Rude.
I heard the chimney's been on and off, like show don't tell, and I was like, fuck, who gives a fuck? doing
I
something
get
else.
to be fair, people often say like culturally Australia is like 20, 30 years behind some other places. So maybe movie criticism hasn't really hit you all yet.
I mean, I don't watch a movie and like look at the chimneys, see whether there's smoke coming out of them or not. Like, I mean, like when I watched,
how will you get the metaphor
barely
about the
paying.
wider state of American manufacturing and its economic consequences on the hockey team?
I mean, I just don't give a fuck. I mean, when I'm watching a movie, I'm barely watching the fucking thing anyway these days. I've got an attention span of a goldfish. So, but anyway, do we have any news today?
There is some.
Have you not even read the fucking spreadsheet already?
I'm on my laptop, man. I don't have room for a spreadsheet. I've got like the screen with your faces on it and the chat.
That's all you need, baby.
Ah, Funky said in the chat, you guys, he remembered an old episode where we were talking about Stargate. That is a film I want to rewatch. Do you remember
like
that?
SG1?
I do.
Stargate SG1?
No, the film that preceded the TV series.
It holds up.
But like that same shit.
Does it really?
I think so. Yeah, I watched it, I don't know, 2 years ago or so. And it may not be quite as good as I remember it being because I watched it first time when I was like 8. But 20 years later, still great.
I was actually just going through.
Like,
I was actually just going. My kids are at the age now where I'm starting to expose them to like not Slapshot. We're a couple of years from that at least, but like I'm looking at like the Blues Brothers and like Stargate would be one of those. I think they're probably ready for. My older one, Alien 1, like that type of
Alien 1. It's Alien 1 is horror. Like Alien 2. Alien 2 is gonzo fun. Alien 1, that is like nightmare.
That's nightmare fuel, right? Okay, maybe not Alien 1. All right, fair enough. Yeah. They've gone through like Raiders and that kind of stuff, and so like
I think I saw Predator when I was like 9 or 10.
Predator might be in there too.
But like,
but I can't do Aliens without Alien.
I don't think I saw Alien until the actual rating. Like, I don't think I saw Alien until I was about 15, and I was like,
I mean, it is something. It's yeah.
Like,
yeah, I have one cocky kid who thinks he can watch anything at that age, and so I kind of want to put him in his place.
Do it. Do you know what? I've changed my mind. I'm fully on board. Alien.
Just drive one child to nightmares just because.
Hey,
careful what you ask for.
Blade Runner. That because
boring.
You know, that's a cracking film.
It is. It's too boring though.
Too boring.
When are you gonna play them the Russell Crowe filmography?
Oh, you're gonna start getting into some Gladiator.
Yeah, Gladiator.
They'd be ready for Gladiator.
Gladiator is longer.
Master and Commander.
Well, Master and Commander, obviously. Gladiator is longer than you think, with less action.
Oh my goodness!
It's all front loaded.
Ben Davis, there you go. Actually, it was Null who mentioned Master and Commander. How'd that come up? Yeah. In
the chat, Ben Davis has just said the only film to ever freak me out was Face Off, which has to be a lie.
That has to be. But I've never actually. I've only seen parts of it. I've never seen.
I'm going to take.
I've seen parts of it, but
off. It's Face Off is an amazing, stupid film. Hey, have you seen The Rock?
Yeah, I was just watching The Rock clips on YouTube. Actually, it's funny
because you know, like there was always.
Is it like a?
Well, in the UK, like it's been like kind of a joke that people would just be like, "Oh, it's Sean Connery." Yeah, it's a Bond film. Like for ages, and then finally somebody put that into a video essay on YouTube, and that's now like that is canon.
Yeah. I don't know why those. I don't know if it's like maybe some sort of. Maybe it's an anniversary or something coming up because it's like showing up everywhere now. So
you know, there's like the whole thing about 007, like James Bond, because it's like the 007 is just a number, right? And so different people occupy it at different times. So the additional Reddit the addition to that, I think it was Reddit, is like, oh yeah, well the James Bond, the name is also like obviously it's a pseudonym because he goes around everywhere being like, I'm James Bond, which you wouldn't do if it was your fucking. You would only do it if people were expected to already know. Oh yeah, that's the assassin who works for MI6, right?
What's Sean Connery's best role?
The Rock.
Like, what do you think he'll be? It's not gonna be The Rock. I don't think it's gonna be The Rock.
Zardos. It's Zardos without doubt, right?
No way. Highlander. His fake Spanish accent that happens to sound like a Scottish accent.
Oh my god!
Definitely.
Yes. Because there's the scene in the boat, isn't there, where the guy who's supposed to have the Scottish accent but is like Dutch is like, ah, yes, how are you having such a strange accent? And he's just like, yeah, she's actually a very arrogant.
Sure.
And literally, there's just a Dutch guy talking to a Scottish guy, and one of them is like, "No, I am Spanish," and the other is going, "Yeah, I am Scottish."
Fucking Zardos. God damn it. Who brought
Zardos?
That up?
That is a film. That is one of the films of all time.
Right?
Have you seen Zardos, Schultzy?
You got a poster. That's that poster behind you, isn't it? Is that a Zardos poster?
What? Right there? No, that's from Dark Souls. Is what that is.
Oh, okay.
Zardos. How do you spell that?
Dark Souls.
Z-A-R.
Very, very heavily influenced by Zardos. So
Z-A-R-D-O-Z.
So
Christ, he's made some fucking films. That's for sure.
in literally the first minute of Zardos, a floating head comes into screen throwing guns out, and I think there's a chant coming from the head, which is something like "Kill the men, worship the penis." Is that right? It's something like that.
I've seen this. I'm wrong. I've seen this.
Yeah, it is a wonderfully deranged film. It was. I think it was one of those movies that was a weird rich person's tax break, and Sean Connery knew the guy and was like, "Yeah, fucking
yeah,
sure.
Yeah, Sean George.
How much?
Exactly. Yeah. What's Sean Connery's favorite? No, wait, I've forgotten the joke. It's fine. Forget about it. Let's move on.
Sure.
So, what's any advanced on Zardos as the best Sean Connery film?
I think that cannot be our viewpoint.
Feel free to advance another one.
Indiana Jones: Last Crusade, The Untouchables, one of the Bond movies.
Well, the Untouchables was where he's just like, "Oh, I'm just an Irish beat cop."
That was a good fucking movie, though. That was a good movie.
I mean, it's all right. Oh, and it does have the amazingly racist line where he goes, "Shilly wop, you brought a knife to a gunfight," and then immediately gets shot.
Yes, he does.
You're like, no, Sean, he brought a gun to a gunfight.
Yeah.
The Zardos movie had an incredibly large budget.
De Niro, Garcia,
1.57 million.
Huge.
Ooh, in the chat we have Outland.
Outland's. I don't think it's gonna be up there.
Yeah, that's the one with is that the one with the mining colony where he's like the policeman?
I don't know.
Is that a Connery movie? Outland, 1981.
Described as High Noon in space.
It looks pretty cool.
Incidentally, I rewatched High Noon a while ago because I had this sudden realization that Die Hard is High Noon after a fashion, and that's another film that's very, very good. So yeah, but okay, well, Zardos, there you go. Nobody's advanced it, so and we can't have supporting actor. We can't have Last Crusade, which is not that good.
What I thought. I mean, it's not as good as the original, but it's a pretty fucking good movie.
It's all right. It's okay.
Yeah, it's a nice story. I would say Goldfinger would be my favorite, but I don't know.
Goldfinger.
Of the Bond movies.
Yeah, we're gonna allow. Yeah, that's good.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, well, I think my favorite Bond film would probably be Casino Royale. Actually, the first of the Craigs. But I do like Thunderball. I have a lot of time for Thunderball.
Yeah. Hunt for Red October? Maybe? No.
Oh yeah, no.
Don't respond well to bullets. Yeah.
It's also got Sam Neill in it, hasn't it? I would have liked to have seen Montana.
It does. Sam
Maybe I'll
Neill's
have
accent
2
is
wives.
fucking terrible.
What is it? What? While the Americans listen to their rock and roll, all they will hear will be the sound of our laughter as we conduct missile drills.
That might be homework for this week, is to watch that movie again. I haven't seen that movie for ages.
Such a good film.
I think
Early
honestly
Alec
think Austin
Baldwin too.
Powers is the best 007 movies by far, bar none. Austin Powers for sure.
What?
Austin Powers is the best 007 movies in my opinion. Bond films.
Austin Powers isn't a Bond film.
I mean,
It's the American version.
It's the American version.
Well, it was a comedy. It has to be in the arc of Bond films.
I think I would contest that. I think that pre Austin Powers, Bond was way more campy than like the more modern things. I think that Austin Powers actually had a negative effect on Bond films because they couldn't be nearly as campy after Austin Powers because they like leaned into it too hard. So I would contest that for sure.
Well, no, it's just because you're remembering Roger Moore, and then the Brosnan years were very different.
Brosnan years weren't bad though. I think he had a bum rap, honestly.
I think GoldenEye was
GoldenEye,
one of the best. And the tank scene, like, you know, they to film that, they just bought 3 tanks and smashed them through St. Petersburg. Like the scene where it drifts around the corner, they actually did that. They just flooded the street with liquid detergent so that it was basically a skating rink, and then drove the tank at top speed and slammed the fucking brakes and just drifted it around the corner. Absolutely mad stuff. Totally. Yeah. Anyway, whatever. Yeah, there you go. Funky says in the chat, it's a parody. That's the word I was looking for.
I'm fine with that. I won't contest it's a parody, but that doesn't mean it can't still be the best one.
Well, but it's not a Bond film, and it never mentions Bond or 007. So, like, if it was like this is a parody, like you can't say it's a Bond film if it doesn't have a character called James Bond in it. or
semantics.
Or 007 at the very least.
Tomato. Yeah, exactly.
It's not tomato. It's a different film franchise. That's like saying that Russell Crowe, like some connection between 2 films can mean that they're the same thing. That's like saying Les Mis is the same as Master and Commander because Russell Crowe's in both. It's like, well,
isn't it though?
Scott Glenn, Sam Neill, James Earl Jones is in it. Oh my goodness, The Hunt. I have to go back and watch that.
It's so good. It's so
Sam
good.
Neill's Russian accent might be one of the best. It's amazing.
The only thing that's a bit disappointing is that obviously they then made Patriot Games and Clear and Present Danger, and they're just okay.
That's with Harrison Ford, though, right? Both those are Harrison Ford movies. Yeah, because Alec.
Is it not Alec Baldwin in Patriot Games?
No, I thought it was. Wasn't it?
I know. You might be right, actually.
Yeah, I think it's. I can check. I think it's. Yeah, no, it's Harrison. So Harrison took that over for Alec Baldwin. I don't know why. Maybe. I mean, Harrison's a better Jack Ryan to be, in my opinion, but whatever. Right, he was, but Alec Baldwin was like perfect for that for Hunt. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. I think Alec Baldwin does, because the whole point is Jack Ryan's not supposed to be like an action hero. He's an analyst, right?
Just a guy in the wrong place at the wrong time.
He's just a guy that works in the Pentagon who gets told to go out in the North Atlantic, right? And over time, his character became more and more warped as these things
as one does.
To be fair, like you look at our journey on this podcast, you're like, we were just infrastructure engineers that became more and more warped, more and more tainted.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah. So yeah, I guess we're going to say Hunt for Red October, are we? And then
that can't be the best Connery movie. Come on, that's
well,
that's pretty rough.
I don't know.
Maybe Undecided.
I can't think of a better one off the top of my head. So
yeah,
we'll
I'm trying to find. you're talking about this downward spiral from a retweet after last week's episode. Zach Bull says, now that the ETF is approved, this is going back to the BTC ETF that was approved last week while we were on. Now that the ETF is approved, normal people will be able to invest in crypto instead of just the mentally ill. It's perfect. A great tweet.
Amazing. So yeah, I mean, that was a fun thing that happened obviously on last week's on last week's show. I think that I mean, it's been interesting as well seeing a lot of the discussion here, because obviously there's a current kind of live discussion about tokenization, the Investment Association's report that was out the other week, and I saw some of the discussion going on about that as well. And it kind of seems like, from a regulation perspective, like, for what, you know, in various ways, the UK was already kind of moving in a certain direction, but it certainly seems to have put wind in the sails of a lot of those discussions that were already in flight, at least I suppose in the ability for people to sort of talk about it, or the confidence for people to talk about it more publicly, I guess, which is interesting because of course there are a bunch of actual I wouldn't say actual use cases, but there are a bunch of use cases that are more commonly accepted to be not insanity, that are kind of predicated on particular use cases for properly regulated entities using blockchain platforms and compute platforms that have like smart contracts and stuff like that. So one of the good things, I think, is that if you're on firm footing doing stuff with smart contracts that aren't Ponzi schemes, this is good news for you, because it seemed like it pushed those conversations along, like fund tokenization, clearing, all that kind of stuff that involves, obviously I have a bias towards things that involve digital cash and digital money. But it seemed like those conversations maybe were helped, or that, well, they're obviously already going on independently, and so this has actually no bearing on them, but it seemed all kind of positive in terms of that side of things as well. I mean, of course, when we all get wrecked and everybody's pensions disappear, it won't look so rosy, but that's, YOLO, you win some, you lose some, right?
Right. That's right. That's tomorrow's problem.
That's tomorrow's problem.
Let's party tonight.
Let's party tonight, baby. So off the back of that, are we in a bull yet? I mean, sure, I know there's opinions in the spreadsheet on the bull, but
we're in it. This is it.
This is the bull.
Soak it up, folks. Ethereum's at 25.28. Bitcoin really struggling after the approval, huh? Looks like the alts are getting the pump based on the idea that maybe this extension or this SEC guidance extends out to Ethereum or other L1s. But yeah, some things are doing okay. Not the stuff that we hold, but
it kind of seems like in crypto at the moment, like anybody says anything and Ethereum picks up the benefit.
Mm-hmm.
Like somebody would be like, Cosmos is the future, and then Ethereum's price would pump and Cosmos would stay static, and you'd be like, Cosmos is not Ethel too.
It's what it is. Say's doing really well this week. DYDX is getting back up to where it was. It's still down overall, but it's doing good. Chainlink is doing really well this week. There's a couple of things there. Ethereum's up a little bit. It's doing all right.
Yeah. Say's been on a bit of a tear lately, isn't it?
It has, yeah. It's back up to over 80 cents. It's 84 or 85 cents right now, which is 16 or 20% this week. But I think even it's probably, I mean, it's up from the 16s or 15s. That was only a few months ago, right? Like maybe 30 days ago, 45 days, something like that.
It seems like just yesterday it was like 8 cents.
Yeah, yeah, it does.
I mean, okay, not financial advice or whatever, but to the extent that like there kind of seems like a bit of gentle upward movement on quite a few things. I think, especially with some of the, I don't think we can talk about yet, but some of the things that have been pushing in new AIPs and whatnot over on Aptos, we were kind of thinking now's maybe the time to not, because the staking works super differently there. Now's the time to just sit on the stake for a while and just see what happens, maybe. like shoulder a bit more of that long position, that risk that the artifact guys are allergic to. I'm not sure about Cosmos because, well, I don't. There's nothing to sell, and there's difference between 20 cents and 50 cents is only meaningful if you're day trading, right?
Yep. I don't know. We kind of it's not like we're dumping all the time, but like it's like these markets are impossible to have any sort of like long-term prediction on. So it's really difficult to say I'm going to hold X, Y, or Z. Because it has provenly shown that like execution has nothing to do with price, right?
Yeah. Sure.
So it's tough to be able to look at execution of teams and say, I have long-term. There's a couple of those which I do believe in, but it's even with great execution doesn't necessarily mean anything's going to have the eyeballs or going to have the structure of it, right? And I know Say has done a lot more in terms of marketing, and they've done a lot more in terms of visibility on Twitter, and they've done a lot more in terms of driving like Ethereum-based eyeballs. And I think there's a lot of cross-chain individuals who come to Say and like look at the execution time, and they look at the gas, and they see like a really positive ecosystem. But I mean, which is totally true. I 100% agree with. And also, you could probably say the same thing for 20 other chains, right? So.
Yeah.
Like, so what actually pushes that ball forward, and Say is different because of the execution and being tenement based. Like there's definitely differentiation there. There's no doubt about it. And especially with the EVM stuff coming. But still there are things that are very close to that have never had that momentum. And what really drives that, I think, is difficult to say. There has to be some projects, and it has to be the right kind of outreach. And I don't know, if somebody had that figured out, I think it would be.
I mean, I think what the obviously there was a lot of smoke and mirrors and scams and yada yada with Terra, but I think Terra really had a big. They were on to something in the way they executed, which was the incubation of projects combined with the presence of a stable coin. Like, there's just a whole bunch of DeFi products that fundamentally are not going to get mass adoption until they're pegged to the US dollar, like a stable coin. And that I think is like in a lot of alts as well. That's a complex story. That honestly, I do wonder if a lot of the Ethereum momentum and stuff like that, they have a whole bunch of native solutions for that with, more consumer confidence for you to peg a DeFi protocol around,
Yeah. Yeah, I would agree. Definitely agree on the Terra projects. Like, because I remember when right before the collapse, I wasn't really involved in that ecosystem, but the quality of what was coming out of there was just unbelievable, I thought, in terms of some of the DeFi and like other types of projects that were running there. And then I remember when after the collapse, and there was like that push to get projects over on Juno, right? Remember that? Like there's like a big push to be able to do that. I think some of those balked at that and just were waiting for Terra 2, I'm guessing, in some sort of sense. But even then, like even the components that came out of that and some of the teams that came out of that, like it was and maybe all that's still there in Terra 2, but it was pretty eye-opening for us.
Yeah, I mean, I think there was a little bit of a problem with kind of addiction to the foundation's money as well.
Yeah,
which was a problem. But I mean, I think that what you see in a lot of ecos is that there's either addiction to money from a foundation or there's addiction to VC money, and ultimately the two are kind of the same. And there's very few places that seem mature enough to have people bootstrap projects without VC money, which I think genuinely, in terms of like this is not a surprising take. I don't think at all, from me anyway, which is that like I think a lot of the current kind of permissionless blockchain space is kind of sort of long term, it's sort of trash with the amount of VC and foundation capture of early value that's currently there. I just don't think it can actually deliver on any of the more interesting goals, which seem to me to be kind of virtue signaling. But, you know, all of the chains and whatever that are very closely tied to things like stable coins, to real world representations of cash, whatever, those are like those are the places where you would expect government, VC, all that sort of stuff, because they're going to be like lending products. They're designed for mass. You know, there's a spectrum of cypherpunk to people who just want to earn extra money via a DeFi protocol of some kind, and like I don't know, the fact that so much of the space, like the air in the room, is taken up by people cosplaying or being cypherpunk is kind of, it's interesting. That's still where we are as a kind of marketing thing. It's like or even not necessarily cypherpunk, but like, oh, this is going to change finance. This is about freedom. This is about collective ownership. This is about yada yada yada. And it's like, no, unless everybody has an equal share, it's not about collective ownership. It's about whoever has the most money, it runs the thing, and the foundation by definition has the most money. So and then the people who have more money than them are the VCs. So yeah, that's called land owning. And the people who live on land that is not theirs are called serfs. So what you've invented is digital serfdom. Yeah. I don't know what that makes validators. I guess we're
digital serfdom.
Digital serfdom. What are we? We're like knights of the realm of the digital serfs. Do we, when the serfs rebel, do we put them down?
It sounds it's way worse than that. It's gotta be.
This is my thesis. This is my PhD.
This is an extra 5 years of my life, people.
No, so although to be fair, so the serfdom thing is not mine. That's actually Yanis Varoufakis, who is the Greek finance minister, was using it. I was reading an article recently. He was using it in context of the big tech companies, and I was just thinking, yep, that's a good description of something else I recognize. But hey, whatever.
Let's do some news before we get out of here.
Please.
14 minutes left to go. I'll read it since Noel's going to read one.
I got to go, man. I got a bit of a dumpster fire.
Node related, or like, is it
the
people
the
archives are down?
I have a life related dumpster fire. It's nothing node related, but I got to bail. Yeah, I'll see you guys soon.
Steak with King Nose. Bye. All right. Bear Chain was in the news this week because there's some Bear Chain validators in here, but Bear Chain testnet feels the wrath of the. I hate reading Rama's text. Listen, I'm just for the record, any snark coming out of here is from the down under. Okay. So Bear Chain testnet feels the wrath of the Cosmos bull market, unanticipated demand for Bear coins, and the honey pushed the testnet infrastructure and Cosmos SDK to the limit. What even is Bear Chain? ? Why do so many people want honey? I don't understand. So being in this testnet and being involved in that team a little bit, and same with Schultz, you can comment this in the wall. There was a pretty large structure. I think actually there's a lot of people just banging on the faucet and a bunch of other types of shit that hit either Bear's RPC nodes or maybe others. And there was some issues. And so that team's been doing a lot in terms of working around gas structure, right? And working on the mempool. And there's a whole bunch of different things that they're basically tweaking to try to be able to solve this. So this has, I think some of this original snark, not so much in this tweet that I'll put in the show notes. It's really just a screenshot from Smokey the Bear. But some of the original snark was like, was shitting on Cosmos or the Tendermint SDK or something similar to that, which is just a bunch of bullshit. Like, it's just a platform. That platform can be tuned for anything. We've seen both in terms of the inscription crap going on this week within the hub, around 900 transactions in a single block every 6 seconds, as well as on the other side, on the SAY side, when we have 100 to 200 transactions every 300 milliseconds. That tool set can do a bunch of different things. And so the idea that Bear Chain or something else is going to be unsuccessful because of that is this horseshit. So every team makes trade-offs in terms of the settings and structure around how the chain runs, and that team will figure it out. So anyway, I do agree that the faucet had a lot of people on it.
Which one is Berachain?
Berachain is an Schultz, you can't keep me accurate here. EVM compatible. Yeah.
Well, let's back up for a second there. It is EVM compatible, but it's EVM exclusive also.
Bam.
They chopped out all Cosmos transactions.
So the staking and the consensus side is in Tendermint, and the application side is purely EVM. Is that right? I don't know if I'm saying that correctly or not, but that is the objective. And they have a bunch of DeFi. I hate to use that term, but whatever, a better one at the time of it right now. And so there's a bunch of DeFi based applications that sit on top of that. So we've actually been, I know that I've been pretty impressed with that team so far, at least in terms of what has been produced. I think the quality and the movement of development, the plans, I think it's pretty exciting actually. So I'm excited to see kind of where that goes.
I honestly had just thought it was a meme.
Me too.
I'm not even kidding.
Yeah.
I was just like, oh, it's that meme that I don't understand because I'm a boomer and I'm trying to read fucking 8 to 10 academic papers a week at the moment, so that I don't look like a jackass at the end of the month. But
yeah,
turns out it's a real thing, huh?
I think fair enough. Causeless Arms said the same thing. I thought it was a meme from the bear market. I did as well. I think early on we got communication, everything else, and as we've gotten involved in there, like it's a pretty professional organization, I think, compared to some other chains that we work with. So yeah, I'm excited about. I'm excited about the pace and the quality of what's been done so far, and I'm looking forward to what happens in the future. So I think it's something that's going to be interesting to see what happens in 2024.
One thing that's really interesting for Berachain is that while it's like Cosmos based, they have no IBC, and they don't necessarily intend to activate IBC, which is utterly fascinating to me.
So they're a Tendermint chain. Are they a Cosmos chain?
They are. No. How can they be a Cosmos chain? Like they're not even using
because
IBC would have to be,
and they don't have the SDK, right?
Yeah, correct.
Right.
They ripped out the SDK. So they basically have to home spin it, I believe. Or, I guess they'd port those parts of the Cosmos SDK in. But either way, I think it's really interesting that they chose going with Tendermint, basically, and not committing to IBC. I think it's a bullish case for Tendermint in general, or Comet BFT, or whatever it's called now.
I think it's pretty fun. I mean, the idea of not including IBC, I'm not sure where that's rooted in, because it doesn't really take away anything from the chain, I don't think. But it is interesting to have a quote unquote Cosmos chain that doesn't use IBC. I think it's kind of fun.
Well, yeah, there's that. But also, I don't think it's less that they are not including it, and more that's not a priority yet. It's like it might be coming down the line, but it's not a mainnet priority, which is just utterly fascinating to me.
It would be interesting to see, like, I haven't looked at that code, like what the structure of it is, whether they have the SDK in there at all. Because if they have the SDK in there at all, in their state model, then they can include IBC relatively simply. My understanding is like one of the bigger, more complex. So there's a whole bunch of like tech debt in the SDK's IAVL stuff, basically, like how it persists state essentially to the chain. And there was a persistent problem, which I gather has like there's been a lot of refactoring work on it. So I wouldn't want to talk authoritatively on where it's at the moment, but there was a whole bunch of stuff a while ago on trying to generalize out the state representation needed for things like, because IBC itself is just, obviously the protocol bit, but the implementation of IBC as a reference implementation to make it more general. And obviously the idea of IBC itself is that your state representation could be anything on the other side, but the actual main Go implementation obviously is closely tied to the SDK and the way it manages state in that. So it would be interesting to know if they don't have the SDK and they're basically just Tendermint plus some of their other custom stuff on top, what they have picked and chosen to sort of fill in the gaps that the SDK would normally sort of give you out of the box, and then what they would then have to shim in to get IBC working. In fact, you know what, a dead clue would be to look at things like soft slashing and whatnot. If the soft slashing is there and things like that, then I think that's in X staking and X distribution is in its SDK functionality rather than Tendermint functionality.
I don't think that slashing is a thing right now. There's jailing. Certainly there's jailing, but I don't think there's slashing at the moment.
Well, if there's jailing, I think. Okay, shout out in the show comments if Frey is wrong. I'm not sure. Well, so okay, so I can tell. So this is the level of nerd I can get to, but I'd have to remind myself of the code to be completely authoritative. In Ethan Buchman's original paper, it is specified that the implementation of Tendermint has the slasher. In this case, we're talking about the Ethereum, like Vitalik's idea for the slasher, which is soft slashing, implemented within Tendermint, the protocol. But I don't know if that was because that was early enough that there wasn't a separation of concerns from Tendermint to the SDK, because my understanding, it's been a minute now since I've looked at the innards of an SDK application, or indeed the Tendermint internals. But from memory, that was where the slash was on the SDK side rather than the Tendermint side. But I could be wrong. Yeah, my favorite other thing about Bookman's original paper is that it begins, I shit you not, an academic paper with, I learned early in life from Tony Montana that a man has only two things, his word and his balls, and he'd break them for nobody.
Wow.
Kind of set the bar pretty high for my eventual PhD thesis, huh?
Item number 2, introducing Sir Isaac Neutron, the Telegram trading bot created by Jacob from Skip. Buy and sell assets on chains that Astroport is deployed on, which right now is Neutron, Injective, Say, and Terra. Soon to expand, I hear, a little birdie, with fees going back to the Newt DAO. I can't believe that Game of Nodes is somehow involved in the shilling of Newt, but there you go. On episode 97, you heard it here first. I will put a link to Sir Isaac Neutron, if I'm spelling that correct, if I'm saying that correctly, which is a Telegram bot that has that's coming soon.
A quick question came out of the chat for you two, both on respectively on the Bera testnet. I think it was from Funky saying, is the testnet permissioned or permissionless, and is it worth joining?
It is permissioned. You can see the docs, you can see what we're doing, but they gate the binary pretty heavily, and we don't even have access to the code itself.
The repo.
They just we don't have access to the repo. They just release binaries when they want to.
That's a shame. I wanted to have a poke around the repo after that discussion.
Permission AF. For now, maybe it'll change.
As foretold.
As foretold. Maybe. I don't know. It's good. So, yeah. So anyway, so this, I'm on the wait list for the spot. Hopefully, I'm not sure if it launched yet, and I'm waiting for a position or what's going on, but I kind of enjoy the idea of some AI front end to some wacky DeFi. So I'm looking to see how that works. It's exciting. Skip team kicking ass across the board, man.
That's what I was just about to say. Like once again, they rock it.
Yeah. So I just had a conversation like this last week, and
Skip team.
Just like they're moving away from kind of like MEV and some of that core piping, and they're just getting involved in a bunch of other things. And I think a while ago we were talking about that video where somebody was bitching about like Jack at Strangelove. Remember that? Somebody put that like, hey, they're involved in too much shit and blah 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 and all this type of stuff, and like just shitting on it because they're a capable team. And Skip is like, what we said I think at the time was like, hey, put together a great team, go solve great problems, and that problem goes away it's not even a problem, but whatever. That problem goes away because there's more capable teams delivering it, and Skip is absolutely one of those teams.